It is perhaps easy when we are trapped in our own mind to forget that we and our bodies are also an aspect of nature. Discovering the fractal properties that impact how our bodies work is integral to medicine, and modern doctors take this into account.
Good afternoon, everybody. Me and my team are here to focus on fractals in medicine. Before we talk about medicine, however, we want to make one clear distinction. While Mandelbrot did discover fractals in 1975, there were previous alchemists in Northern Africa, Europe, and Asia that actually had similar ideas, just titled differently. Fractals derive from the name fractus in Latin. That means to break, just like a fracture in your arm. Same type of meaning. A big part of fractals is iteration. You see iterations in the Jurassic Park book, The World. Rick, would you like to join us for your annual checkup? Woo. So we're going to be discussing what parts of fractals we're going to use to have your annual checkup. So we're going to start with your lungs. Here, where we have the bronchioles, as you guys can see, there's a lot of similar repeating structures in there. That's what makes fractals big. In the brain, there's a lot of layers with neurons which send information. That fractals are the only way that you can find about that. In the veins, here we have arteries. And starting from the aorta all the way to the capillary, there's consistent breakdowns. So we're going to have specialists coming in to treat you soon. Stay tight. Patients with.
Thank you, doctor. I'm gonna be covering two parts of your body, patient, your heart and your circulatory system, which is bronchiole, the lung. So fractal, when we talk about fractal with the medicine, we are ourselves, human beings, are fractals. Our lungs, our circulatory system, our brains are like a tree. They are fractal structures. And natural objects, including us human beings, are made out of different fractals, different types of fractals, which each contains a pattern and a different fractal dimension. And also, bronchiole is a tube in the human lungs. Have one fractal dimension for the first 7 creation of when it's developing, branching, and different fractal dimension. Now I'm gonna show you guys a video that describes a little bit more. And yeah.
This simulation of branching structure in the bronchi is based on a fractal model called fibrin function, or IFF. Since this type of model is based on a function instead of on data, we can specify an extremely complex structure using very little information. This application for immediate purpose is twofold. First, serve as a training tool for medical students, and second, use the existing knowledge of doctors to evaluate the validity of this IFF as an accurate model of functional structure. The complexity or depth of human functional systems can vary widely from individual. Here we see the effect of changing the depth of the model. Once contraction model has been generated, individual bronchi can be added to or deleted from the model. This feature is used to analyze and correct differences between the fractal model and actual specimens. If the model becomes so complex that it cannot be rendered quickly, it can be viewed as a wire. In this mode, the model can be rotated to provide the desired view. The application can simulate the movement of bronchi during breathing. This movement is also limited and falls directly up.
So as you guys see the video of our lungs are the important organs for mammals, for human beings. They contain, helps humans and human beings to inhale and exhale oxygen and carbon dioxide. You can find those either side of the heart. And when we look at the lungs outside of the surface, we think it's like small. It looks like a smaller, but it's very large. This is due to the fact that the lung branching fractals. Now the next one I'm going to cover is the heart. Your heart is the real muscular. Your heart is sort of like a pump or two pump in one. The right side of your heart receives blood from the body and pumps into the lung. The left side of the heart does the exact opposite. So next, we're gonna look at a video that can lead me to the next topic to describe how fractal works within the heart.
The tricuspid, mitral, pulmonary, and aortic valves work like gates on a fence. They open only one way and only when pushed on. Each valve opens and closes once per heartbeat, or about once every second. A beating heart contracts and relaxes. Contraction is called systole, and relaxing is called diastole. During systole, your ventricles contract, forcing blood into the vessels going to your lungs and body, much like ketchup being forced out of a squeeze bottle. The right ventricle contracts a little bit before the left ventricle does. Your ventricles then relax during diastole and are filled with blood coming from the upper chambers, the left and right atria. Then the cycle starts over again. Your heart is nourished by blood too. Blood vessels called coronary arteries extend over the surface of your heart and branch into smaller capillaries. Here you can see just the network of blood vessels that feed your heart with oxygen-rich blood. Your heart also has electrical wiring.
Now you guys watched how we get blood transfer from our lungs to our heart to our body. So this is right here, this graph. This graph is basically healthy, deep sleeping, light sleep, REM sleep, which REM sleep means when you like sleeping after 10 minutes or after you sleep 90 minutes, which like your eyes are wandering around or you are dreaming, your body is as active as you are awake. Rapid eye movement, yeah. So, like, yeah, sleep. So this is like a normal version of it. Galileo in the past discovered that our heartbeat within the palm, he discovered that our heartbeat and the palm beat is the same amount, rhythm or fluctuates. But as the time goes on, they discovered that it doesn't really fluctuate the same way. It fluctuates very different. When you look at the graph on the top, deep sleeping, it has really bigger gaps within the fractal dimension. And when you're sleeping and awake, they have really big differences. So right here, we're gonna look at healthy and very healthy and heart failures and shuffling where a disease happens. Slope right here is when you're awake. This is when you're sleeping. The slope one right here is like, there are different slopes for both of them. The second one is, it's perfect. The slope 1.1, the slope 0.1, which is good. They have bigger gap differences. Right here, when the slope is 1, 2, and the slope number 2 is 1, it's like very close to that. That's when the person's health is very in concern. Right here is when really the heart fails and the person is in a bigger trouble. This is what I have so far, and I'm gonna, if you have a question, you can contact me. I'm gonna transfer this to the brain surgeon.
All right, thank you very much. My name is Dr. Abbas. I'm a brain surgeon at this research institute. So I will be covering in my presentation around 4 topics in a very short amount of time. First, I will talk about the brain structure, then about neurons and the mathematics behind it, and finally, what is like how brain tumor works and how the fractal implication on brain tumor. Okay, we're gonna do some activities on our patient today. All right. Let's talk about brain structure. So basically, brain is composed of three basic main structures. The first part is called cerebellum. This part is all about thinking, deep thought, and like seeing things and stuff. And the middle part is called cerebellum, which is a double L. And that is basically it's a motion control part of our brain. And there is a third part called medulla oblongata, and this part is basically sneezing and stuff. So let's do like a couple of activities. Imagine an apple. Sorry, imagine an apple. All right. So how is the shape of the apple that you imagine?
It's shaped like an apple.
Like, tell me descriptions. Red.
Color-wise?
Yeah.
I went with green.
Green apple. Yeah. So basically, right now when he's thinking about green apple, he's using the frontal lobe of his brain. Okay. And whenever like, let's get up. Just walk a little bit. Okay. This part of his action is controlled by the middle part of his brain, which is called cerebellum. All right. All right. Sneeze a little bit.
Sure.
Yeah. That part of structure of that part of action is controlled by the medulla oblongata of his brain. All right. I can just have you say. So the question is now, how do this part of a brain connect together? Like, how do all these actions connect together? There is something called what? Neurons. So our brain is composed of more than 100 trillion, 10 raised to 12. It's not a 6, it's not 9 zeros, it's 12 zeros after 1. Composed of 100 trillion neurons. And all these neurons are structured in a form of fractals. Amazing. This concept called fractals are basic implication of the structure and the pattern of these all neurons. Let me talk about how one neuron is related to another neuron. Okay, we have first neuron. Let's think about while Rick is sneezing, one of the neuron receives an information through dendrites, electronic pulse, some information, and connect to another neuron. And those kind of structures goes around and follow and repeats themselves, right? That's what fractals are like. Pattern repetition and pattern recognition. But the mathematical relationship between them is that the first neuron 1, when he is sneezing, n plus 1 is equal to the second neuron, the whole raised to square n plus c. All right, just let me explain this in a very short way. If we think the action 1 is determined as 0, it's going to be neuron 1. So neuron 1 is related to neuron 0, the initial neuron, times raised to 2 plus constants. Some constants are like some information factors that determine while he is sneezing, he might be writing. While he's sneezing, he might thinking something else. So these are the fluctuations of the distortion that amount that creates the shape of the neuron inside his brain. So this is basically the mathematics behind it, and I think some people will talk about it. And every information that our mind processes inside itself are based on a pattern, and these patterns are based on the neurons that recognize the fractals. Does that make sense a little bit? Yeah. All right. So how do like fractals help brain researchers? Like how do fractals help like controlling brain problems and brain challenges? One of the things that currently like affects people is a brain tumor, especially that happens on like a pituitary gland of our brain. Everybody knows what pituitary gland is, right? Yeah, pituitary gland controls the major hormones around our body, the growth hormone, the gonadotrophin hormone, sexual orientation hormones. So basically, tumor that happens on the pituitary gland, the major gland of our brain, is understood by researchers or by cancer brain researchers by its shape of fractals. So on the brain cancer cell, there is a fractal structure. So it helped them like to re-engineer it in the sense that they build a kind of medication that help them re-engineer those patterns. If the pattern is going like this on triangle, they build something that goes against it using the fractals algorithm or the fractal structure. So basically, that's how the fractals help brain researchers like to build the medications and stuff. I hope the next doctor will just go what's the future of fractals and like how is it impacting the technology. If you have any question, I'm really happy to welcome it at the end of the program.
All right. Thank you there, Abbas. Here we have a video to give you a quick introduction to how fractals are used within the brain in medicine.
If funded, but it turns out it is cardiology.
Goldberger found that the healthy heartbeat has a distinctive fractal pattern, a signature that one day may help cardiologists spot heart problems sooner. Biophysicist Peter Burns and his colleagues see fractals as a practical tool, a way to develop mathematical models that might help in diagnosing cancer earlier.
Detecting very small tumors is one of the big challenges in medical imaging.
Burns knew that one early sign of cancer is particularly difficult to see. A network of tiny blood vessels that forms with the tumor. Conventional imaging techniques like ultrasound aren't powerful enough to show them.
We need to be able to see structures which are just a few tenths of a millionth of a meter across. When it comes to a living patient, we don't have the tools to be able to see these tiny blood vessels.
But ultrasound does provide a very good picture of the overall movement of blood. Is there any way, Burns wondered, that images of blood flow could reveal the hidden structure of the blood vessels? To find out, Burns and his colleagues used fractal geometry to make a mathematical model.
All right, so as you can see here, that was a brief introduction, and after that, you see that fractal geometry has been widely started being used within the research and within cancer within the body. And here you see the normal veins and arteries before any, and as you can see within these arteries and veins, they are the fractals, and there are symmetric figures, and they're at a controlled rate. And here are the normal capillaries, and here you see they are again still have constant shapes, and they're at a symmetric and parallel as well. And then here, as you see, when a tumor starts to grow within the body, the tumor vasculature, which is pretty much the blood vessels attached to the tumor, begin to move at a chaotic rate. And as you can see, it's a lot more than when it's healthy arteries and capillaries. And so, as you see here, this is a mammogram, and a mammography has been widely used to diagnose the irregularities within the breast, and for this to be used in a proper manner, fractal geometry can be used to find these irregularities. As the normal micro calcifications are being able to be used within the low contrast of this picture. And here, as you see, as the picture begins to zoom in, the fractals move at a more chaotic rate, and you see the shapes within this cell tissue. And so, studying these intricate fractals within the body can help develop new ways to help preventing the spread of the cancer. And here we have the fractals within the cancer cells. And before a cell gets recognized in the body, it's still a benign cell, which means the cancer still hasn't spread. And here's when the cancer begins to spread. They start to move at they're more larger than the regular cells, and they're called malignant cells, which means they begin to spread. Yeah, and as you can see, the degree of fractality here is a lot more as the cancer begins to spread. All right, I'm going to pass it over to your primary doctor, and he's going to go ahead and take care of the rest of the examination for you.
Thanks for coming in today, Rick. I hope your questions were answered. We're actually going to have you wait out there up front. We're going to bring your report in soonly, and they'll be shortly. As you can see, before Mandelbrot, when he discovered fractals, he wasn't even sure how much of an impact we'd have in today's medicine. He has helped aid tremendous findings, and he will continue in the future, as you heard with the cancer research, the brain, the heart, the lungs, among many other things. We're open for questions. Thank you guys for listening.
We would like to welcome any type of questions regarding fractals in medicine. Any question? Think you got a question?
No, from the audience. There you go.
Yes, yeah.
Did you guys look at how fractals connect, like the similarities between the respiratory system, the brain, even our nerves, and how similar those are?
I'll jump in. Basically, there is a pattern similarity. That means that every fractal that happens after one fractal is bounded by that formula right there. So basically, if you have one fractal, like F1, right? And the second fractal, F2, is the first fractal square plus some constant, some distortion that's created in 3D model. So if you have a lung, the shape of the bronchiole goes into like the shape of the bronchiole determines the shape of the bronchioles, the very smaller part of the lung cell, like the very smaller part of the lung where the oxygen and also carbon dioxide like exchange. So every part in our body is based on that formula that they're like they call it Julian cell or something. Some group will explain that. So there's some amount of distortion, but it's based on the original fractal, the square of the original fractal. So for some second shape, there is already one already pre-established shape plus some factors around it. So it's pretty much the same across all body in that concept. Yeah. Any question? Thanks.